Alright guys, I'm going to make a video on disassembling this HP. This is what's this one? Pavilion G4. And I'm just simply going to tear this completely apart. First things first, we're going to remove the battery. Slide this on locks. Remove that, set it aside. Grab a number 1 Phillips bit. Then we remove the hard drive cover, or the cover that that houses the hard drive, memory, and Wi-Fi card. I'm going to begin by removing the hard drive. Let's see, make sure that... There we go. Alright, we're going to remove the hard drive, and for this one there's the SATA connector actually goes from a SATA to a connector on the board here, and we just simply remove this connector from the board, and then the entire hard drive will lift up. Okay, so you can just set this aside. Then we have the 2 memory modules here. Go ahead and remove those. There's a screw here that holds the optical drive. Then you just remove that screw. Once that's removed, you can simply slide the optical drive out. Now we can set that one aside as well. We have 1 screw holding down the Wi-Fi card. Disconnect, or we can, I actually slide the Wi-Fi card out and then I remove the antenna wires from it. Set that aside. Okay, now we have to remove, I think it's 13 screws from the outer perimeter and 3 in the battery bay. And then there's 4. 2 small ones right directly under where the hard drive was sitting, and 1 above where the optical drive was, and 1 directly above where the hard drive connects to the motherboard. And then we also have to remove the 1 that holds the keyboard in place. Okay, so now that I've removed that keyboard one, removing the ones that are by the hard drive, and the 2 that are directly underneath the hard drive are smaller screws. They have the measurements there. It says 2.5 by 3. Then I'm just going to start removing all the ones from the perimeter of the case. And then if you would like, what I do is, so that my screws don't just roll around freely, what I do is I put double-sided tape on a piece of paper like that, and then they don't move around. Just makes it easier when you're trying to put everything back together. Okay. Okay, and then the 3 that are in the right under the battery, where the battery sits. Okay. Alright, now let's flip the computer over. We're going to remove the keyboard. This one had broken tabs, so that lock the keyboard into place. I believe the ones on this side are still intact, so all you would need to do for yours is just gently push them inward and it will release your keyboard. There's 5 on the very top, and then there's 2 on the right side, 2 on the left side, and then of course the ones on the bottom. Once you remove, like for example, with mine, since these are, with this one that I'm working on, since these are already broken, I can actually stick my pry tool in here and it will release the other clips. For you, in your case, you would have to just press those in a little bit, and with a nylon pry tool or a metal one, which are sometimes skinnier, you can go ahead and slowly lift up and very gently. That is, that way you don't break the little locking tips there. So now we remove the keyboard, so we just lift this up. This just lifts up and away. Then we can set this aside. Of course, this wants to fall over. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the ribbon cables that are connected here, that are also attached to your palm rest. So it'll be this one at the top there. We have 2 that are down below that control your touchpad and your mouse buttons. Okay, so now that we have that, you should be able to get your plastic pry tool. And I just want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing, so give me 1 second. Okay, I'm going to be right here. Okay, so I'm going to come in. Let me get it to focus on, hopefully I can get it to focus here. Alright, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my nylon pry tool. I'm going to put a little bit of, see here, it separates. So what I want to do is I want to get in and start separating it. Okay, so you just gently, see if you guys can see this. What's the point of making the video if you guys can't see it, right? So I'm working right here. So what I'm doing is I'm prying it, pulling towards me and sticking my nylon pry tool and just releasing the clips that are holding it. You don't need to be too rough with it. And then you just make your way all the way around the case. Okay, once you've done that, sorry for the camera shaking, it's on the table. Then you just lift this part away and set it aside. And then of course, if this at this point you can replace the board that controls your mouse buttons, your clickers. Okay, if that is your issue with your computer. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the LCD bezel. And there's 4 screws holding that in. For this I want to make sure that you're able to see where I am pointing. Let's see if I can. I'm going to use the battery as a counterweight so that I can open the LCD up so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Let me bring it in a little bit. Okay, so we remove this cable here. These are just the antennas for your Wi-Fi card, so you can set that aside. There's 2 screws, one there and one there. You'll be able to see them. They have little arrows pointing to them. Okay, so you go ahead and remove those 2. And then the same goes for the left side. On the left side we do have the ribbon cable for the LVDS, which is right here. And for this one, I'm just stick my finger under it and then just gently work it out a little bit, and then it'll slide out. Okay, so now we have 2 screws that we have to remove over here. Again, these are also marked with little triangles as arrows. Okay, so now we can go ahead and just carefully lift this away. There is going to be a part here where it wants to hit the motherboard, but you just got to be careful. Okay, so there's the LCD. And then of course, I'll probably make a separate video on actually removing the LCD from the bezel. But for now, it's just tearing it down to get to the bare motherboard. Once you've gotten this far, let me get it to refocus. Okay. There is the DC jack and this USB board. This USB port actually is connected to the board with this ribbon cable here. You got to be careful. These ribbon cables are very different. They're the flat ribbons, but on the end that connects to the board, there's just pins that come out, which is kind of weird. I don't think I've seen that so far on any other computer. And then I just disconnect the DC jack from the board there. Then we have this connector here, which is the SATA connector for your optical drive. Okay, and then we have the speaker connector. I just leave those like this, and then you can grab your speaker connector with a pair of tweezers. Just gently slide it out. Move that aside. Undo this last ribbon over by the SD card reader. Okay. And then you of course want to look over the motherboard to make sure that you've disconnected every single ribbon cable, connector, etc. Okay, so then we have one single screw holding the motherboard in, and that's right below the SD card reader. Okay. Once we get that out, now we are able to just simply lift up on the motherboard with one hand, and with the other just make sure that all the ribbon cables are out of the way. And there's your motherboard, and here's your case. So let's move this aside. Let me get this out of the way. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. Now to remove the heatsink and the fan. The fan has one screw that holds it right here into this metal plate. This is double-sided taped onto the motherboard. Not by much. It's got, I think it has one strip of double-sided tape here. So what we're going to do is we're going to warm it up from the underside, and then we're going to remove it. But first, I'm going to undo the heatsink from the processor so that this is loose and ready to go. Okay? So now we'll just flip this over like so. Turn on the hot air station. I'm putting it at 100 degrees Celsius. I just want to warm it up. I don't want to melt solder. I'm not reflowing anything. Okay, once it gets up to temperature, just feel it. And then we just want to warm around here. Okay, so just hit it with some hot air. And then what you want to do is you want to just touch the motherboard to see if it's warm to the touch. That's all we need, just warm to the touch. We don't want it to burn your hand. We don't want it to burn your fingers or anything. Okay, it's getting there. Excuse me. Okay. Once we have that, turn that off, let it cool down. While it's still warm to the touch, what I like to do is come in from underneath the... There we go. See, it's just this little strip here. So if you want, you can go ahead and replace the double-sided tape to reattach it. So we can move that aside, and as you can see, let me see if it's focused in. You can see the processor, the thermal compound that they put on there, it's barely on, it's all on the side here. Well, this is doing absolutely no good, so we'll replace that. So just gonna scrape off all the excess compound. Okay, and then you just scrape it off as well from the heatsink. Then get some isopropyl alcohol and then just clean it off real good. Pull that off. Okay. And then to remove the fan, because you want to get the dust and all of that, I'm going to use a 00 screwdriver bit to remove the one single screw that holds this metal shield, or holds the actual fan to the metal shield. There's little clips all the way around the fan. You have one here, one there, and one on the other side in between the heatsink. So just pry it up. And this fan is pretty gross. Luckily with this one here I can remove the fan, and if you can see that, you can see that it is very, very dusty. I don't know if that's focused in or not. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's pretty dusty. And also on the see if I can get this angled properly so you guys can see what I'm seeing. The fins are just caked with dust, pet hair, whatever it sucks in. So I'm going to clean that out, and I recommend that you do so as well, especially if you're replacing a part on your computer and you have to get down to motherboard level. Well, there you have it. The disassembly of an HP Pavilion G4. I hope this helps. I will be making a video right after this one on the reassembly of it. That way you guys can see how quickly that goes as well. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Comment, like if you want to. Subscribe if you feel like it. If this helped you. If not, that's okay with me.